Good morning, everyone. Good afternoon, and very welcome to our first webinar, actually, of 2022. And Stephen, I'll hand over to you to start, if that's okay.
Thank you, Fidelma. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, ladies and gentlemen. As most of you know, my name's Stephen Henderson, and I'm the Global Commercial and Channel Partner Manager for Diagnostic Green. You're all very welcome to this and the latest in our distribution webinar series, and we at Diagnostic Green hope that you, your families and colleagues remain healthy and safe as the world slowly emerges from and begins to learn to live with COVID-19. However, despite the difficulties that we all face in our day-to-day lives, there are sadly those who face much more significant and pressing issues, and our thoughts are undoubtedly with all of the innocent victims of needless and senseless wars. On today's agenda, which Fidelma will bring up, it gives me enormous pleasure in a few minutes' time to introduce a key opinion leader within the world of fluorescence-guided surgery, Dr. Carol Pullum, to you. Dr. Pullum will share some of his insights and thoughts into the utility of Verdye in his day-to-day practice. Once Dr. Pullum leaves us, I'll provide you with an update on the current global position with Verdye, a brief reminder on its use and how to administer the product before I hand over to Fidelma, who will refresh your memories on the reconstitution and clinical applications of the product. Fidelma will then take an in-depth look at the pharmacoeconomic benefits of using Verdye and the current suite of marketing material that's available to you through our dedicated distributor portal. I will then close out the meeting with some requests for information from you specifically. If during any of the presentations you have any questions whatsoever, please use the chat function to send these to us. And if we don't get a chance to answer during today's webinar, we will follow up directly with you in the coming days. Dr. Carol Pullum completed his medical degree in Poznan in 2006. 2008, he started training in surgery, and please excuse my pronunciation here, Dr. Pullum, in Wielkopolska Cancer Center in Poznan. He continued his training internationally at Keio University in Tokyo and at the University of Siena in Italy before returning home to Poland to practice the techniques that he had learned. Carol joined ESSO in 2008, and from 2012, he has been a steering committee member of the Young Surgeons Alumni Club, becoming the chair of that club in 2016. With over 150 publications to his name already, many of which are in fluorescence-guided surgery, we've asked Dr. Pullum if he'd be kind enough to share his experiences with Verdye, why he sees it as being beneficial to him as an experienced surgeon, and even more importantly, why its use is beneficial to his patients, how, when, and where he uses the product, and his thoughts on how we as a group go about spreading the message of the benefits of fluorescence-guided surgery to other surgeons who have yet to embrace the technique. Over the course of the next series of webinars, we intend to bring you the voices and thoughts of surgeons in different disciplines, in different areas of the world, because there's only so much that I and Diagnostic Green can say to you about the benefits of Verdye and fluorescence-guided surgery generally. It's so much more impactful and important to hear it directly from the men and women who day in and day out change the course of people's lives for the better. So without further ado, I'd like to introduce Dr. Pullum, and I'll start by asking, I suppose, a very simple question, Dr. Pullum. When did you first become interested in fluorescence-guided surgery?
Yeah, good morning, everybody. Well, my story began in Germany, in Berlin. That was in 2000, I think, 8. A friend of mine, he got a scholarship and said that, well, visit me. During that time, I just went to Charité University by Professor Schlag. And that was one of the first worldwide centers in the world that started to use indocyanine and green. And I saw the first operations over there. I also saw how this friend of mine did his research project on that. And afterwards, we also started doing this as I came back home to Poznan. So 2008 was my first site. Then I also continue with a little bit different approach in Keio University in Tokyo, Japan. So these two experiences just you know, started everything with what I do now.
Perfect. And in terms of your clinical experience with fluorescence guided surgery, and obviously our specific interest in cyanine green, Verdye, what procedures do you tend to use the product in, and which procedures do you find it most useful for?
So I have to say that you know, starting so many years ago, I had a chance to use it in a really wide variety of applications. At the beginning, we started everything with a sentinel lymph node biopsy and breast as well as melanoma. And as we started that, we also
Sorry, Dr. Pullum, I'll interrupt you there just a second. Rizvi in Sri Lanka, could you put yourself on mute, please? Yeah, could everybody on the call, other than Dr. Pullum, mute themselves, please? That would be much appreciated. Sorry, Dr. Pullum, continue, please.
Okay, not a problem. So we started everything with a sentinel lymph node biopsy for breast as well as melanoma, and our first papers they were focused on that. Afterwards, we also started to look for fluorescence in sentinel lymph node biopsy for colorectal cancer, but we did not have so many patients at that time, and also with some technical problems in the department, but not related to the product. We did not finish the project. Moreover, we also started angiography of esophagus, and that was a research done by a friend of mine that I also participated. So that was one of the first in the upper GI European perspective research. Afterwards, I moved to Italy. Because in the meantime, I did not participate so much into the fluorescence world. I had to change a little bit my experience, my perspective, research perspective, because we also used fluorescence in Siena, Italy. In majority, we use that for colorectal angiography, and because previously I worked in cancer centers, and in Siena that was not only cancer center but also general surgery department. We used massively for cholecystectomies. That was really helpful. As I came back now to Poland, in majority we use it currently for sentinel lymph node biopsy. But it's not only in the cyanine green. We also initiated a project with fluorescence of methylene blue. Moreover, we use indocyanine green for angiography, and here angiography of colorectal, as well as gastroesophageal cancer surgery. And we also started in collaboration with my other friends the angiography of breast, as well as axillary reverse mapping of the breast cancer patients. So yeah, as you see, I really, well, now I see I really did a lot during my time. So yeah, that's really a big perspective.
Yeah, so there's a wide range of procedures then that you've been able to find utility with the product. And what are the benefits for you as a surgeon of using the product? What is the benefit of fluorescence guided surgery to you?
So first of all, as everything pushes us to do some new things, I really see the benefit, first of all, for the patients, but I will come back to that. because at the beginning it's really interesting area of research to see unseen and to really explore new way of visualization, as well as thinking about modern safe surgery. The biggest benefit, what I see now, is the angiography. And I will just give you a simple example that my chief here in Gdańsk, Poland, where I work now, you know, he's kind of a old-fashioned surgeon, so he needs to have some proof that, you know, it works. So we started our research based on a colorectal angiography, and then, you know, I was the person that pushed everyone to do that. And every single time I was called to come to OP theater and you know, examine the whole angiography of the colon during the surgery. And of course, after 10 patients, we did not change the resection of the colon. And everybody around said, well, you know, of course, very good that you do research, and it's very nice, your experience, worldwide experience, but it doesn't work. And of course, you know, people started to, let's say it, discriminate the method by itself in terms of that what I did that time. It was like a few years ago, but I was patient, and finally my good patient came. It was an 85-year-old person who had a pretty simple surgery of sigmoid cancer, and luckily my chief operated that patient. So I was called to do angiography, my research, in commas, of course. And for the first time, we did the angiography, and we had to change the resection line. And afterwards, that was the real breakthrough during our clinical work, because that patient uneventfully left the department after 4 days of hospitalization. In the other way, he might have had a complication. So afterwards, people were looking for me just to come and do the angiography to help in their clinical experience. That was not the case at the beginning. So that breakthrough really opened the closed minds of my friends and helped them to realize that it is the safest way of choosing the best place to do anastomosis. But of course, not always was the case. I also remember one patient that I did for esophagectomy. I was the operator, and in angiography, everything was perfect. But the patient, after in post-operative period of time, developed the fistula. So yeah, that was not always the case, that everything was perfectly visualized. We still have to look for this uneventful cases. Moreover, we also see the benefit for the patient after different advanced breast cancer surgery. I mean, the flaps, and also mobilization, as well as transplantation of the nipple areola complex. And in that cases, I can really see that I still do not have a tool. I think that you know, all these quantification analysis probably may help, but it's not that easy as it seems to be during the colorectal surgery. It's much more complex in terms of the flaps, but no doubt, I think that also this part is the biggest benefit for the patient. I do not see so much in terms of sentinel lymph node biopsy for breast and melanoma. I did it a lot, but as we have still the department of technetium, so nuclear medicine department, we use currently the standard technique. We did the sentinel lymph node biopsy for different cancers, but in terms of a big revolution, as I thought it might give, it is practically saying useful, but not as a game changer that I would say I would use it instead of other techniques. For smaller departments, it's perfect tool. Perfect. I mean, that opened new small hospitals with a very experienced surgeons who did not have access to nuclear medicine departments for a new way of performing surgery using new methods of sentinel lymph node biopsy procedure. So in that terms, it really means something. So to sum up, angiography is my leading point of benefit for the patients, as I see it for today's practice.
Thank you. So we do know, and we have an interest in quantification moving forward as well, and we see area and room for research and development and perfection of the technique, certainly within that particular field. It's very interesting to hear the ability of the product to change the resection line, to improve patient outcomes, reduce length of hospital stay. All of these things are clearly goals that we should all be striving for within surgery. So how would you suggest, and we have on this webinar distributors from all four corners of the world, but we know when we go out to meet with our surgical colleagues that not everybody is yet converted to fluorescence guided surgery. Not everybody is practicing these techniques. What advice would you give? How would you go about convincing a surgeon who's not practiced this technique previously to begin to embrace it?
First of all, I think the core issue here is the training, because the biggest threat I see is that people are equipped with highly innovative things, like a camera that costs a fortune. Afterwards, cannot use it properly, and on the end they say that it doesn't work, it's bullshit. I mean, I don't need it. For example, a friend of mine, he is a urologist. They proposed him to buy the new camera system for urology in a small hospital. So he did not perform any training. He just looked in the paper that for lymph node biopsy, he should give the indocyanine green and he will see it. So he gave it intravenously and was completely lost, because he said that it's completely unuseful technique, and he doesn't recommend it because it was even worse than he thought at the beginning. I mean, these kind of a simple mistakes made by people make them really I mean, blind for the beauty of that, what we can see during the procedure, what is unseen before. So from my perspective, because we can say that you can use it in this procedure, that procedure, and I'm cordially for it, but I think that as you will do the proper training with the people who understand, because it's also important that you understand fluorescence, you understand the pros and cons, you understand the things that does not work properly, and you understand how to change it, because not every operating surgeon is you know, research mind, so it sometimes need a guidance, even for the, you know, big names, big professors. It's not that easy, as you have to deal with a new technique. I mean, surgeons, they present sometimes a too big ego, and they think that give me the tool, I will handle it. It's not true. This is why we also initiated this training courses by European Society of Surgical Oncology. We do that annually. I mean, during this COVID era, last 2 years it was online, but again we will meet in Leiden, Netherlands, where I think it is one of the even not the best center for fluorescence in the world, with the Professor Verdye. So we show the people, okay, you have the camera system, but that's the beginning. You have to use the dye, whatever, whether it's indocyanine green or, you know, the other antibodies connected, etc., because this is also the future. But you have to use it in, first of all, a proper way of giving, a proper dose. Of course, you can do cholecystectomy, but as you inject the indocyanine green just before an operation, you will see completely nothing. Okay, so this is also the reason why you have to be prepared that, okay, for sentinel lymph node biopsy, I have to give the dye transcutaneously. For cholecystectomy, I have to give intravenously. For sentinel lymph node biopsy, I have to give it just before an operation. For cholecystectomy, I have to give much more in advance. And as I want to do elective surgery, I can give it 10 hours. As I need to do acute case, I can give it shortened, etc. So these are the examples that people need to know, because without proper training, they will be bad advocates for that what we can see in our daily practice. No doubt, the fluorescent guided surgery, it's gonna be the future. No matter whether it's going to be combined with the other techniques that we use it for today, or it's going to be by itself the technique that we will use, because it's already proven its safety profile as well as benefits for both the patients and the surgeons. So that technique has only one chance to grow. It will evolve. The only question is that it will need to have a special training program. I know that in the US, they already started during the residency program, special training just for fluorescence. And I think that, you know, societies like ESSO or others should have in their portfolio a special training programs that will help people to understand applications, ways of visualization, sometimes hands-on practice as well, just to show. Also, different cameras should be used, because not every single camera because I checked almost all cameras. Some of them should be banned. Some of them, even the research based on them, it's not good, because the poor results, from my perspective, sometimes are based on also poor visualization of that what you can see. Some cameras are too complicated for simple usage, etc. So these are examples where you should really have the wider perspective, instead of, you know, just fitting you into small worlds. So yeah, I would underline the one word: training.
No, that makes absolute sense, and you're in a position to be able to comment on the egos of surgeons in a way that I possibly couldn't. So we absolutely believe the training and education, we're with you on that, is absolutely the way forward. We're looking to develop master classes with each of our distributors in their local markets to work with key opinion leaders to begin to spread this training out to surgical residents. You'd also mentioned the differential dosaging. That's a difficulty for us from a licensing perspective because we can only promote what's on our license. However, we know that the International Society for Fluorescence-Guided Surgery have provided very comprehensive guidelines on different surgical procedures, site of injection, dosage, timings, etc. And again, we would refer all of our partners to utilize that to provide that information to their surgeons. So the final question really to go back, you mentioned that when you first started using it, the first 10 resections didn't really demonstrate anything. So how many procedures, once you've had the training on the technique, in your experience, how many procedures would a surgeon need to perform with fluorescence-guided surgery before they would become comfortable with its benefits?
Difficult question. I think it is everything is related to your experience in the other techniques that you have. For example, as you perform sentinel lymph node biopsy procedure with the gold standard techniques, with the technetium, and then you have to make it with image guided surgery, it's super easy. I mean, you do not need to have a huge number of cases that you will have a chance to say, okay, I'm already done. So in terms of angiography, I think 1, 2, 3 cases, because you will have to be familiar with an equipment, with the time, with distance of the camera. So you have to be familiar with technical issues, because from visualization and changing in the procedure, it's so easy that I think it is not a big deal. I think it is as with every single new technique, a few cases of guidance with someone who already did it, and you can easily do it by yourself. I'm not that convinced that as you see something during a conference, then you can copy paste it in your clinical practice, because sometimes this little things matters, and it's not that easy. I mean, we already have more than 15 years of experience in image guided fluorescence guided surgery, so some of the crucial points are already done, and with more and more people can easily adapt it as a technique that is used for our daily practice. So I think it is not that difficult, and hypothetically might be performed easily after 1, 2, 3 procedures done by experienced surgeon. I mean, even by the resident, but maybe not on the first 1, 2, 3 years. Maybe that would be difficult because of the surgical complications, not about the method by itself.
Okay, thank you. And then the very final question, then you'd mentioned that the technique is going to increase in terms of usage over the coming years. How far away are we from it becoming standard of care in different surgical procedures?
I think the biggest problem is that, first of all, as we see the results, for example, colorectal angiography, because that's the most important part. As we will start with that's going to be a real breakthrough. The same story is with the cholecystectomy. Cholecystectomy is one of the most common operations done around the world. I think that the results presented are a little bit mix of everything. And the biggest problem is that the dose and the time and the type of a camera, they do not match together. And I see that some centers, they present huge benefit. Some centers, they present no benefit at all. Even the trials that we, of course, discuss a lot. I'm also active in this social media, so I try to follow every single new paper about that area. So from that perspective, the biggest problem is that the standardization and the results are a little bit relied on the problems associated with our daily surgical issues. For example, as we have the trials based on colorectal cancer surgery and geography, the number of postoperative leakages varies from 20% to 2%, from center to center. So then we put everything together, we create a meta-analysis, and the result on the end is the sum of highly experienced surgeons who have 2% of leakages, and we compare it with those who present 20%. Huge debate about that, and on the end you have to present during a conference that, well, the meta-analysis and the randomized clinical trials, they present that there is no benefit of using ICG. And during our daily practice, I can easily show many cases that we already had to change also our daily practice, resection margin, etc. So that's the biggest problem in our standardization, because otherwise it would be very easily adopted, and it's going to be, I think, the tool that we will use. Secondly, I think also the usage of quantification analysis may help, because maybe we thought at the beginning that it's going to be so easy that black and white visualization can give us all answers, and I can honestly say it's not true. Again, we should look for grays, so the gray color in between, that there is the answer that we should still have to look for a little bit more tailored approach, not only black and white, as we also used using our naked eyes, that we saw vascularized, not vascularized. So I think from that perspective, we have to use our techniques of machine learning and artificial intelligence, just to show that there is a little bit more a story behind, and then that's going to be the bright future. As we will prove that, I think it's going to be easily adopted, easily seen. The same story with cholecystectomy. I can really don't understand why someone says it's not beneficial at all. I mean, as you do properly the operation, and as you see the structures with a good quality camera system, I mean, easily see structures that you should resect, you should avoid to resect, and full stop. I mean, that's need to be clarified, and I think that the societies are doing a great job and keep moving forward, just to make it a clear answer whether we should standardize that in the proper way or not, because otherwise we will still look for we should use it, but in some doubts, and some centers, they say it's not useful, and debate like with every single unstandardized technique that we already had in our history and past. I mean, the tools that we have based on the research, high quality research, are the answers that we will be very soon able to use it in our daily practice.
Thank you. It's pretty amazing for a pharmaceutical product that's been in existence for 70 years that we're now talking about it coming finally to the forefront of surgical techniques with AI, quantification, standardization, etc. So Dr. Pullum, thank you very, very much for your incredibly insightful comments and views. I know you need to go off to perform surgery, so we'd like to thank you very much. I have no doubt that your comments today will have stimulated many thoughts amongst our colleagues as to how they can go and convince other surgeons of the benefits of fluorescence-guided surgery. So thank you very much.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
So what I want to turn to now is the global picture, and to give you a little bit of an update in terms of where we are with Verdye, which, as you know, is the world's leading brand of indocyanine green. Verdye is used by more surgeons in more markets, in more patients than any other brand of ICG. Now, as the manufacturers, we frequently get approached by market research companies that are looking to sell reports to us, looking to provide a guide to the future trends within different areas of surgery and medicine. And the reports that we have purchased have universally indicated a significant trend of predicted positive growth for ICG. Indeed, one such report from 2019 claimed that within EMEA, ICG would see compound annual growth rates of in excess of 20% between 2020 and 2025. Now, there's often, of course, a degree of crystal ball gazing associated with these reports. So it's always of interest to look back on how sales have actually unfolded against these predictions. And we have seen growth, and the key things that have driven this growth have been the growing adoption of fluorescence-guided surgery by surgeons worldwide, validated by clinical studies, peer-reviewed publications and consensus papers, the continued push by the major camera manufacturers and robotic providers selling their camera systems with near-infrared modules to hospitals to allow the procedures to take place, and a rapid expansion into major markets as well through an aggressive filing strategy that Diagnostic Green have put into place to enable us to protect the market from unapproved products. The other key element, though, is you, our distribution network, and the time and resources that you have invested and are continuing to invest into growing the market. And grow the market you have. Record sales in 2019 were maintained despite the unprecedented challenges of 2020. And 2021 saw substantial growth. However, we didn't see the predicted compound annual growth rate of 20% that the market report predicted. We actually achieved growth of 39% in euro terms. And this growth trend shows no sign of slowing down. As Dr. Pullum has just very articulately communicated, we are seeing more and more surgeons becoming trained in these techniques, more and more surgeons becoming comfortable with the benefits for their patients. And we will see a continuation of the acceleration of growth in the coming years. Even using proxy markers for the health of the sector, we can see from the growth simply in the number of clinical papers published in ICG, accelerated growth in 2020 and 2021, and indeed a doubling of the scientific research output using the product since 2015, all just pointing to the increased interest in this technique. Over the last few years, Diagnostic Green have grown our global presence. And you'll see in the next slide that we've moved from just 8 contracted distribution partners at the start of 2019 to now reach the landmark figure of onboarding our 50th official partner for Verdye. And we continue on the next slide to develop our strategic partnership with third-party companies. We now have direct connections and co-promotion strategies in place as the partner of choice for Karl Storz, Arthrex, Richard Wolf, Olympus, and Quest that they have just acquired, Intuitive, CMR Surgical, Stryker, and indeed Medtronic. The core of our business remains Verdye, and as a brief reminder, the product is well tolerated, has an excellent safety profile, is a prescription-only medicine with a very broad range of approved indications. It is currently approved in 14 countries and available in another 40 worldwide. And we have over 30 years of research in fluorescence diagnostics to back it up. On the next slide, we'll touch on the current list of licensed indications, which for the product are cardiac, circulatory and microcirculatory diagnostics, liver function diagnostics for the measurement of liver blood flow and measurement of excretory function of the liver, and finally ophthalmic angiography diagnostics for the measurement of choroid perfusion. The key within these licensed indications, though, remains the circulatory and microcirculatory diagnostics. In other words, wherever any surgeon might possibly want to see perfusion, Verdye is indicated. The next couple of slides look at our dosaging, and this was mentioned by Dr. Pullum as being something of importance, and we know, and we have talked about this as a group, that we can only officially provide the information on the dosing that's included within our license. So our license means that we do remain restricted on the official advice that we can give on dosing. But as mentioned, and as you know, the International Society for Fluorescence Guided Surgery have gone much further and placed into the public domain information on differential dosing and dosage timing in different surgical procedures. And I don't intend to go through the next couple of slides in any detail, but you will see from them the very significant number of surgical procedures that the ISFGS are providing very specialized information on the injection type, usual dosage, injection time, when ICG will first be detected, how long the duration of ICG will be present for. We would urge you again to provide this information because it is in the public domain if there's a question about a specific surgical technique. I'm now going to hand over to my colleague and the head of global marketing and communications, Fidelma Callanan. Fidelma.
Thank you, Stephen. So I'm just going to continue and talk a little bit about the basics, I guess, of Verdye and actually how it's reconstituted. Just for those that may not have joined the webinars when we started these off in early 2020. So first of all, you reconstitute it. You draw up a vial of 5 ml of sterile water if you're reconstituting a 25 ml bottle of Verdye, 10 ml if you're reconstituting a 50 ml bottle. You remove the protective lid of the Verdye bottle. You pierce the Verdye bottle with the syringe. The water will automatically draw down into the Verdye. You remove the vial. You shake the contents of the bottle, and Verdye is then reconstituted. Then you draw up the required amount for IV administration. And as Stephen has said, that does depend on the procedure that you want to undertake. But you use a syringe suitable for IV admin, you spike the reconstituted bottle, and you draw up the required dose. And then you administer to the patient. And as Stephen said on our label, it is to do with IV administration. Two things are important is you need to keep it away from light after it is reconstituted. And as you will see in the label, it is a sterile product, so it is intended for single patient use only. And as I mentioned, the dosage does depend on the procedure undertaken, the weight of the patient, and also you need to consult specific dosing details prior to admin. So I'm just going to show you a tiny little video of actually how the reconstitution is done. So, hopefully. You're removing the cap, you're spiking the bottle. Okay, and then you'll see the water automatically pull down into the vial, into the bottle. And then you shake it and it's reconstituted. Then just to then draw it up onto the vial that you're going to administer to the patient. Just like any other product, you just take down the amount that you actually wanted to submit to the patient. And that's it. It's ready for for administration. Again, single use only, dispose after use. So as Stephen said, there's a number of clinical applications. Ophthalmic, which is where a significant amount of product is still sold. MIS, which is minimally invasive procedures such as laparoscopies, and a lot of other surgeries now are done by laparoscopically doing minimally invasive procedures. You've got liver, you've got plastic and reconstructive, which is really, I suppose, a subset of minimally invasive, and then you have other as well, which I suppose Dr. Polam has talked about, which some are off-label but are used by clinicians. So established use, ophthalmic, cardiac, circulatory, and it's this microcirculatory that's so important for perfusion, and then also liver function diagnostics. And just so you know, we have developed quite a significant amount of material to help support each of these applications, and they are all available in the portal. So we've got a brochure on ophthalmology. We also have a one-pager that kind of highlights, I suppose, the key selling points for use in ophthalmology. So it talks about the use of fluorescence or ICGA versus OCTA, and also fluorescein. For MIS, we also have another brochure, as well as then a one-pager, kind of drawing out some of the economic arguments. For plastics, we have the same. For liver, we have the same. So I would advise you to, if you haven't looked in the portal, look in the portal and pull down these materials, because they are very specific to the application to which you should be talking to surgeons. So I suppose in summary on the kind of the brief kind of quick overview of Verdye, as more clinical experience and expertise is gained around ICGA, the number of clinical applications will undoubtedly increase. I'm now going to talk a little bit about the economics as to why you use, I suppose, why you use Verdye, and how you would actually convince a surgeon or an administrator in a hospital about the use of Verdye. You will have seen these on these single pages that I have on the portal, but just to draw out some of them. So really it's talk about, and it's really, I suppose, also what Dr. Polam is saying, it's about the impact of seeing more, or as he says, seeing the unseen. So seeing allows surgeons to make better, more informed decisions intraoperatively. It reduces the percentage of complications. It increases hospital surgeon referrals. So if you're seen as I suppose, a center of excellence in your hospital, then more people will go there. It increases patient satisfaction because they won't be in hospital as long. And it also reduces the cost per procedure. And I'm going to go through these in a little bit of detail on some what I would call high impact procedures. So you've got laparoscopy, colectomies, and breast reconstruction that I will cover. So on laparoscopy, it's actually not the problem that the surgeons are trained ineffectively, or that they've had a problem in their training. The problem is that actually it's called this visual perception illusion. Dr. Gunning, if you can go back a few months and listen to her webinar that is also on the portal, she talked about this, about that actually the problem is that patients can't see, our surgeons aren't sure what they actually are seeing. So by using fluorescence, you're actually making it far easier to see the anatomy of the patient. So some of the economic arguments, you'll see by a paper by Dip, he talks about that it's 300% improved ability to see the biliary structures. So 3 times more able to actually see those structures that are maybe causing confusion and this visual misperception. 8 times conversion to open procedures is reduced. So by using this, you're reducing it by 8 times. And also in terms of cost savings, and this is a US paper that was published in 2021, that the cost saving per patient is over $1,200. If I move on then to colectomy, anastomotic leaks, and Dr. Polam talked about them also. They are what they call the most dreaded complication in operations of the large intestine. And in any conference you go to, they all talk about anastomotic leaks. So some of the economic arguments here, there's a 50% reduction in the rate of anastomotic leaks in this 2021 paper. There's a 44, almost 45% reduction in the length of hospital stays. And for this one, and it's a European paper that was published in 2020, there's over 2,600 euro saving per patient. And the reason for this is that there's a significant reduction in the amount of redo anastomosis that is required by using the dye to, I suppose, see better when you're doing the original surgery. And then if we go to breast reconstruction, what really the breast reconstruction does is using ICG or using Verdye is that it helps with decision making. It helps to be able to see actually the flap and I suppose the viability of the flap before you actually do the reconstruction. So here are some of these economic arguments. There's a 51% reduction in complication rates when fluorescence is used on this 2020 paper. There's an 86% reduction in skin flap necrosis. And there's a 26% reduction in breast implant loss from this 2017 paper. So just to sum up, I guess, why the fluorescence guided surgery is so important in hospitals. It improves hospital margins. And we talk, and some of those, the numbers that I showed there in terms of cost savings per procedure are between 1 and 2.5 K per procedure. Reduction in surgical complications for the colon, it reduced the amount of leaks by 50%, and for breasts, complications are reduced by 51%. In terms of reducing potential litigation, lap choles are the highest, have the highest numbers of litigations taken between surgeons and hospitals. And so by using this procedure, you are reducing the amount of, I suppose, bile duct injuries, and as a result, then the reduction in litigation. Also, it means that you positively manage the length of stay for your patient post-surgery. And some of the data that I showed there, it showed a reduction of 44.9% in terms of the amount of time that a patient has to stay in hospital post-surgery. And all this really lines up in terms that it enhances the reputation of both the surgeon and the hospital. So I'm then just going to move on quickly onto the marketing update and just give you an update as to where we are in terms of our marketing objectives in general for 2022. So these really haven't changed from the time I presented this to you in March 2020. It's around kind of 4 key pillars. There's awareness, there's advocacy and education. And this really, I suppose, ties into what Dr. Poland says also about training. There's the evidence and the economics, some of which I've just shown you there. And then really it is about recommending. So as surgeons get used to the dye and see the value of it, then they recommend it to other colleagues, then this builds their awareness, and then the circle continues. So what we want to do is, I suppose, continue to build brand awareness of Diagnostic Green's ICG Verdye internationally, and also the camera IC flow is appropriate. Train and educate surgeons through masterclasses and education initiatives across key territories. And we no doubt that is the most important thing in terms of greater adoption. Increase the evidence of use of Verdye through KOLs, key opinion leader advocacy, economic propositions such as those that I have shown there, case studies, and also webinars. Support your sales and marketing training needs. And as I know Stephen will get to at the end of this presentation, we really want to know what you need, where your gaps are. And then engage with near-infrared camera providers to increase adoption of fluorescence-guided surgery and ICG use. And then influence key societies and groups, such as Dr. Pullum said, like the ISFGS, the EAES, ESO, so that they will, I suppose, talk about it becoming the standard of care, driving adoption, and also training the trainers. So I won't go through these in a huge amount of detail, but I'll send you this presentation afterwards. It's all to do with building brand awareness, promotion of online published materials, and attending conferences, advocacy and education, so KOL education and engagement, distributor support, and working with the OEMs, building that repository of material on clinical studies. We are involved with the AVOID study, which is a big study coming out of Leiden, hopefully at the end of this year or early next. We will do PR campaigns, so I would advocate that you follow us on our social channels, particularly LinkedIn, and you will see there when we promote something. also promote the EAES consensus, so that is due to come out this year. And then as we get broadened indications, we'll obviously promote these at key events with our distributors and via social channels. And then in terms of recommendations, no more than just what we had heard from Dr. Pullum, we will use that to, I suppose, advocate greater use, gather testimonials, publications also to increase the evidence of use, and work with the key organizations. So that is in general what we will be doing over and what we continue to do to promote the use of Verdye. Just in terms of our networks, at this stage we have I suppose, a significant body of KOLs around the world. We have people such as Karl Pullum in Poland, and these are all internationally renowned. Alex Vermeer in the Netherlands, Altaher in the Netherlands, Professor Boni in Italy. In Spain, we've got Professor Morales, Professor Cahill in Ireland, and we have a number also in the UK. And then obviously in the US and South America. Just so you can see kind of how they're split. About 45% of those are colon experts, 20% are GI lab coli, and then they're more reduced in terms of plastics reconstruction and ophthalmic. But they are internationally renowned, and they, I suppose, on their own are advocating the use of Verdye through their own procedures. So as we said, and as Dr. Pullum said, education and training is so important to increase the use of the product. We do work with our network of KOLs. We also engage with these to educate peers in terms of training days, workshops, masterclasses. We're going to build out a number of activities and training programs and guest speakers, as you heard today, and we will continue this at our distributor events as we continue during the year. So I kind of like this cartoon because I think what it shows is actually we need to make sure that the surgeon is trained. We do not want the situation that a surgeon needs to find out, gosh, I don't know what I'm doing here. I need to call somebody. They're not going to call somebody. What they're going to do is just forget about fluorescence and that will be it. And I suppose what we don't want is them to have a bad experience with fluorescence that they then say, oh, it's not worth it. I'm far better on my own without it. And I think this is an important slide, actually, and it really does, I suppose, also reinforce what Dr. Pullum said. This is a learning curve survey that was done by Professor Cahill, based in Ireland. And what he did is he did a survey of 80 participants. Of those, half were experts in fluorescence. And he asked two questions. The first question he asked is, what is the number of cases that you need to do to become proficient in using ICG for perfusion assessment? And then he also asked the question, how many times has it changed what you've done in practice? And really what it says is that experience is important. And while I suppose some people think that you just, you see one, you do one, you teach one, it takes a little bit more. And the more expert you become, the more comfortable you become in using fluorescence. So really what this is showing is that for any of the cases that you do really need to do about 10 cases to become, I suppose, more expert and more comfortable with it. And it was interesting, I hadn't heard that story from Karl Pullum before, that actually it took his 11th case to actually prove the value of using fluorescence. And also in terms of how many times it has changed experience, really between 5 and 15, it has changed in terms of what they would do, change their practice, apologies, when doing a surgery. So they changed where they were going to do their resection when they were doing perfusion assessment. So I suppose what I will be saying is, when you are talking to the surgeons, you need to, I suppose, manage their expectations that actually it will take a few surgeries for you to really see the benefit and become more expert in its use. These are just a list of some of the conferences that we are attending this year. Obviously, if you've seen the CRS one that I would have sent you details on, that happened earlier this month, there's one that we're going to do in Norway. This is the one actually that Dr. Pullum talked about. It's the ESO one, where we will be doing a training session in Leiden. And then the big event this year is the EAES, which is actually happening in Poland in July. Then there is the European Society of Coloproctology in Dublin this year. And then there's the ESO conference, which is a huge conference in Bordeaux, where we actually haven't attended before, but we will attend this year. So these are, I suppose, the international ones. What we also would like to know, and I know Stephen will ask, is what are the local events that are happening that you need support? So it would be very useful for us to know those too, so that we can help support you in terms of materials, lining up maybe a KOL, etc. So this is just the one that was on in the last few weeks. The second part of it will be out on the 28th. I will let you know. And on that event and that part, I think Professor Cahill from Ireland will present, as well as hopefully a few more on fluorescence. So just to keep an eye out on that. What I thought was interesting was, if you hadn't got a chance to view, I suppose, the comments, one of the questions was to the group of surgeons is, do you think how will this use be in the future? Will it be used for all surgeries? And Stephen Wexner said that potentially all or almost all surgeries of ICG will be used. So it is the future. I think another question actually was asked about hypersensitivity, and what Boney said is, in the 10 years that he has worked with ICG, he's never seen any issue with an adverse event. So just useful snippets, I suppose, to take from that event itself. Just to let you know that we are continually updating the repository of materials that we have on the portal. What we are doing also is that we're updating our website, building more brochures, more videos, more materials for when we're promoting things such as the surgery supplement, which is a big supplement that is going to come out from the ISFGS hopefully mid-year. We also have more handouts, pull-out banners, case studies, webinars. So these are all, as we build on these, they will all sit in the repository. And here, if you haven't seen it, I would suggest you need to go on it. If you're having problems logging in, send me your details and I will make sure that you can log in. But this is it. It's a very simple way of getting material, finding material. So it's split into things like, say, patient videos, brochures, training materials. And here you'll see under here the webinar recordings. So this webinar today will be recorded and it'll be put up in here, as are all the other webinars that we've had with you. And they're all available there for you to watch back. In terms of what's new in the portal, what I have done is, just for the economic analysis, under clinical papers, I have added one that gives you the details of the most recent papers on those economic arguments. And also then under general presentations, you'll see this hospital admin presentation 2022. And what that is, it's giving you, I suppose, a number of those kind of arguments about why a surgeon or why a hospital should consider using fluorescence guided surgery. And with that, I think I'm going to pass it back to Stephen to finish up.
Thank you, Fidelma. So the take-home message from that, just to pick up on one of the points that Fidelma talked about within the pharmacoeconomic argument, because I know from a commercial perspective, when going out to talk to different surgeons who are not yet experienced in fluorescence-guided surgery, one of the questions they ask, one of the questions the pharmacies ask, the hospital administrators ask is, how much does it cost to use Verdye? And what I'd ask you to do is turn that question on its head for them and ask them, well, how much does it cost not to use Verdye? So taking colectomy alone as a procedure and the cost saving over €2,500 per patient, that means that the acquisition cost of Verdye, you're saving at least 30 times that price simply by using the product in that one procedure. And it's those economic arguments that are within the presentations on the distributor portal that hopefully you'll be able to take out to convince more people that the acquisition cost of the product should be no barrier whatsoever to its adoption. So in closing, there's some information that I would ask from you, our partners. And following this webinar, I will send you a spreadsheet containing 3 worksheets. And within each of these 3 worksheets, there's some information I would ask you to provide and feedback to us. The first one will be on conference and exhibition dates and venues within each of your clinical segments for each of the key national societies within your market. So where is the big ophthalmic conference taking place in your market? Where is the major cancer conferences taking place within your market? Which of those meetings do you intend going to? And which of those meetings do we need to provide support for you with? Then on the next spreadsheet, we'll talk about key opinion leader contact details. So if you go into the next one, Fatima, please, sorry. Key opinion leader contact details and a history of local contact. So again, I'm not expecting an exhaustive list from you at this stage. If you've got it, perfect. If not, we know what the gaps in our knowledge are. But who are our KOLs in each of our clinical segments? Where are they based? What contact have you got with them historically? Are they a user currently of Verdye? Any information you can provide us so that we at an international level can begin to commit to supporting these key opinion leaders in your market and work with you to turn them into the advocates that we need to provide the training and education that we've talked about today. And on the next slide, the final spreadsheet that I would ask you to complete is a training and education plan. Have you given thought, and if not, we'll discuss this in the coming weeks on calls, but have you given thought to where you will provide master classes, which KOLs you'll use to develop that training module or that training and education to the surgical residents? Where are we planning on doing it? Which camera manufacturer or manufacturers, plural, are we going to work with to help deliver this training? And there's a comment that has been put into the chat that I see that very much I agree with, and that is, let's harness and utilize the camera manufacturers. They are working with us to help achieve our goals. And if we can utilize our relationship at a local level with Card Storts or Richard Wolf or Arthrex or Medtronic or Stryker or Olympus, whoever it may be in your market that is the leader, we should be the partner of choice, working with them to help demonstrate their camera systems, to help demonstrate Verdye, and to help convince surgeons of the benefit of this technique, but ultimately to help educate and train more surgeons to become comfortable with the procedure. And I would ask that, as I say, I'll send this spreadsheet out to all of you in the coming days. I would ask you to complete and return these to me by the 9th of May of this year. If you have any questions, any comments, if there's any information you pick up on regarding our competitors and what's happening in your local markets, please reach out to us. You have my email address. We have the info@diagnosticgreen.com contact email as well. Please continually check out the Diagnostic Green website for new news items, new materials that are being posted onto the distributor portal. There is a wealth of information, of marketing brochures, of presentations that are available to you to help you develop your market. So thank you for your attendance today. We trust this has been useful for you. And until we can meet again, please take care. Thank you and have a good day. Goodbye.